Imagine a child, less valued than a pet dog by his own mother. Welcome to the chilling true crime story of Shanda Vander Ark. Our journey today takes us into the heart of darkness, where the unthinkable crime of a mother against her own son unfolds. A crime so heinous it leaves us grappling with the very definition of humanity. Shanda Vander Ark, a seemingly ordinary woman, mother to a 15-year-old boy named Timothy. But beneath this ordinary facade lurked a chilling reality. Timothy, a child born with severe disabilities, was subjected to an unimaginable life of physical and psychological torture at the hands of his mother. A life that would ultimately lead to his untimely death. As we delve deeper, we begin to uncover the shocking extent of the abuse. Timothy, a child who should have been cherished and protected, was instead treated with less consideration than the animals Shanda trained. The dogs she cared for received more kindness and compassion than her own flesh and blood. But Shanda Vander Ark wasn't alone in this horrific plot. Other family members, even her other son, were entangled in this web of cruelty, complicity or manipulation. The lines blur as we uncover the twisted dynamics of this family. Adding another layer of complexity to this grim tale is the involvement of Child Protective Services. A shocking twist that raises questions about the system designed to protect the most vulnerable among us. A system that somehow failed to prevent Timothy's prolonged suffering. As we untangle this grisly narrative, we are left with more questions than answers. Who is truly to blame for Timothy's death? Was it solely the work of a deranged mother, or were others in the family equally responsible? But the big question remains. Was this a case of a deranged mother manipulating her family, or were they equally to blame for Timothy's death? Timothy, a severely handicapped boy, suffered a life of neglect and torture under his mother's care. This phrase alone paints a picture of a life that no child should ever have to experience. Timothy's story is one of heartbreak and unimaginable suffering, all at the hands of the woman who should have protected him most, his mother. Timothy's existence was marred by conditions that would make even the strongest among us shudder. His home, far from being a sanctuary, was a prison. Basic necessities that we often take for granted were luxuries for Timothy. His diet, for instance, was shockingly inadequate. His mother fed him mostly bread soaked in hot sauce. There were times when he was taunted with the promise of bites of frozen pizza rolls, yet another cruel game in his mother's twisted playbook. His physical torment was matched only by the psychological abuse he endured. Deprived of love and compassion, Timothy lived in constant fear and confusion. The family that should have been his support system was instead a source of endless torment. His mother's sadistic tendencies didn't stop at physical and psychological abuse. She also manipulated her family, turning them into accomplices in her heinous acts. The depth of Timothy's suffering is difficult to comprehend. How could a mother be so heartless, so cruel to her own child? How could she stand by as her son, a young boy with severe disabilities, endured such torment? These are questions that will likely never be answered, questions that haunt anyone who hears Timothy's story. This wasn't a quick act of murder. This was slow, calculated torture. It was a deliberate act of cruelty that resulted in the death of an innocent child, a child who deserved love, care, and protection, but instead found himself the victim of his mother's unimaginable evil. As we delve deeper into this case, we will explore the trial and the shocking revelations that came to light. The story of Timothy is a heartbreaking reminder of the depths of human cruelty, a tale that should never be forgotten. Shanda Vander Ark's trial was as chaotic as the crime itself, with the mother failing to appear for her verdict due to medical reasons. The prosecution presented a harrowing case, painting a gruesome picture of prolonged physical and emotional abuse that Timothy Ferguson, Shanda's disabled son, had to endure. Evidence of his diet, consisting mainly of bread soaked in hot sauce, and the torment of being teased with bites of frozen pizza rolls, underscored the severity of his suffering. On the stand, Shanda insisted that Timothy liked the hot sauce, despite the court seeing the brand used and the warnings about its intensity. This, however, did not sit well with the jury, who found it hard to believe that a mother could subject her child to such cruel and unusual punishment. The defense, on the other hand, tried to plead Shanda's diminished responsibilities, citing her health issues. They argued that her actions were not born out of malice, but of a lack of understanding due to mental and physical health challenges. This, however, was met with skepticism, especially given the severity of Timothy's condition and the extent of his suffering. Adding to the chaos of the trial was the role of other family members. Timothy's brother was also facing charges for child abuse, claiming to be a victim too. Was this a case of a deranged mother manipulating her whole family, or were they equally to blame for Timothy's death? What shocked the courtroom was the revelation about the family's previous involvement with Child Protective Services. A question loomed large. Could this tragedy have been avoided if the system had intervened sooner? As the trial concluded, the courtroom was left in disarray, leaving us to ponder on the question: was Shanda telling the truth about her diminished responsibilities due to her health? Or was it all an act? In the end, this case isn't just about the guilt of a sadistic mother, but also about the system that failed to protect Timothy. Shanda Vander Ark's unspeakable acts of cruelty towards her son Timothy have been laid bare. The evidence shows a pattern of prolonged physical and psychological torture that ultimately led to his death. But the question remains, could this have been prevented? The unsettling revelations about the family's involvement and the shocking oversight by Child Protective Services paint a grim picture of a system that failed to safeguard the most vulnerable. This case serves as a stark reminder that our society needs to do better in protecting children from their tormentors, even when those tormentors happen to be their own parents. In the tragic story of Timothy Ferguson, we are reminded of the horrors that can occur when those meant to protect us become the perpetrators.